So, good morning classmates. So, yung report ko is all about information and communication. So, first, ano nga ba yung information and communication? It refers to the flow of information in an organization. Ideally, there are clear, consistent, timely, and purposely directions emanating from the top of the organization, providing direction and establishing the criteria to measure performance result. So, yung information and communication, it is the key sa isang organization para magkaroon ng mas maayos na sistema ang isang organization, which is sa pamamagitan ng information and communication, syempre, na ma-maximize yung good results sa isang organization. So, some examples nito is, yun nga, yung mga instructions, directions na binibigay ng isang organizations. And syempre, minimake sure din natin na lahat ng informations is napupunta sa tamang destination and yung communication is the way for a better transfer ng mga information. So next is communication is one of the most important activities in organizations. At the most basic level, relationships grow out of communication, and the effective functioning and even survival of organizations is based on having effective relationships. So, dito naman, bakit daw important yung information and communication sa isang organization? So, important to, yun nga, para magkaroon ng mas maayos na sistema and syempre effective yung pag-achieve ng goals ng isang company. Then kasi 'di ba, through communication, doon nag-grow yung relationship ng bawat employee sa isang organization. So which is yung healthy information and communication can establish bond and healthy environment for the employees and yung mga and employers. So mas makakapag-focus sila sa mga gawain nila, ginagawa nila, or yung gagawin pa lamang nila. So, next naman is yung internal communication. It also provides workers with important information about their jobs, the organization, the working environment, and each other. So, dito naman, it is promoting effective communication. So, bakit nga ba promoting effective communication? Kasi nga yung nabanggit dito, which is yung communication helps to improve motivation, builds trust, creates a shared identity, and corporate cultures, and engenders engagement is napaka-essential for an effective communication. For example nga, kung alam mo yung important details or information sa work mo, sa working environment, sa goals mo sa isang organizations, and sa mga kasama mo, surely, yung effectiveness of communication will be practiced. So, yun nga, dahil dito, nabibuild yung trust nyo sa isa't isa and mas namomotivate yung mga employees to work hard. Then, next is yung Bruce states that internal communication occurs on multiple levels. So, yung una dito is yung interpersonal or face-to-face. So, basically, this is a communication between two individuals. So, for example, is yung meeting na lang ni auditor and client. So, yun nga, meron silang some things that na dinidiscuss privately, so dalawa lang sila. So, that is considered as a interpersonal communication. So, yung next naman is yung group level communications occur within and among teams, units, and interest groups. So, dito naman sa communication na to, from the word itself na group, so group of people are involved in this level of communication. So, example na lang is yung meeting sa isang organization. So, yung focus lang ng level na to is yung information sharing, discussing issues, coordinating tasks, solving problems, and gaining agreement through majority vote or consensus. So, lastly is yung organizational level communications. So, ito naman is nakafocus yung level ng information na to sa organization mismo, which is yung vision ng company, policies, ganyan, and also yung mga plans for the future improvement ng isang organizations. So, itong communication na to is typically follow a cascading approach, which is yung leaders is nakikipag-communicate sila with their respective subordinates. Though next is yung information is also necessary for the organization to perform internal control activities that support achievement of objectives. Information constitute the data will be used during reconciliations. It is needed when reviewing supporting documents before authorizing a purchase. It is needed when performing inventory counts or verifying that a user is authorized to access certain records in a computer system. So, dito naman sa information, important yun, most especially when it comes to pag-audit na ng mga transactions. Kasi, di ba, doon nagre-rely yung mga auditor sa ibinibigay na information ng isang company. Then, syempre, yung auditor, doon din sila nagbe-base nung judgment na gagawin nila. So, next naman is yung communication should be a continuous, iterative process of obtaining and sharing necessary information. So, dito naman is, parang sinasabi lang na yung communication daw is continuous. So, parang this is pertaining sa exchange of ideas or informations. Parang ganun. So, yun nga sabi continuous. So, tuloy-tuloy yung pagpasa ng information mula sa pinakababa hanggang sa pinakataas. So, yung next is yung communication is the lifeblood of organizations. So, bakit nga ba nasabing lifeblood siya ng isang organizations? Kasi nga, yun nga, yung sinabi ko kanina na yung communication is the key. So, communication is the key for the interconnectedness of people inside the organization mula sa pinakababa hanggang sa taas. Dapat nagkakaroon sila ng interaction para sa ganun is alam nila yung mga gagawin nila o kung ano yung mga ginagawa nila, and syempre para alam nila yung nangyayari sa isang organizations. So, sinabi rin dito na yung movement daw ng information can follow multiple patterns. So, minsan daw it moves in a direct straight line fashion, while in other instances, pwede ding back and forth, zigzag, over time, or circular. It could converge, radiate out, or even pulsate like particles as bits of information are sent out to others. So yun, as internal auditors and consultants who both generate and use information, it is essential daw that we support management efforts to increase production, analysis, dissemination, and use of information. So, better decision can made and the organization can be more effective in its activity. So, communications can be internal or external. So, kanina 'di ba na-explain ko na yung sa internal. So, yun nga, ito nakafocus lang siya sa information inside the organizations, or in simple words, yung mga information is confidential. Then, next is yung external communications. Enable inbound communication of relevant external information and provide information to external parties in response to requirements and expectations. So, yung sa external communication naman, this information which can be shared to others. For example, is yung meron kang business partners in different firms and organizations. So, meron kayong parang malayang pag-uusap, both parties, para sa pagpapaganda ng organization. So, yun, the access of this data. Yun, since 1990s, yung volume of information daw, especially raw data, has increased substantially. So, the access to this data, yun, ability to collect and analyze it, and its storage creates both, yun, opportunities and risks. Opportunities daw, bakit? Kasi daw dahil sa data na to, organizations can gain a better understanding of their customers' characteristics, new products, ideas, and buying preferences and patterns. Risk because the storage of this information carries the risk that it is accessed or lost due to hacking, insider sabotage, or accidental disclosure. It can be costly. So, even the transmission of data during short periods of time, such as when clearing credit card transactions, can be compromised by someone intercepting the transmission. So, for many organizations, avoiding the risk daw during transmission is impossible. So, yung controls is kailangan na i-make sure natin na yung data is meron siyang strong access controls. Syempre, it is encrypted then during transmission. And it is promptly deleted from all storage devices when it is no longer necessary. So, yung free flow of information naman is important to allow management and employees to understand new or change events in their operating environment. So, pag yung information is suppressed, there is an increased risk that management will operate in a vacuum. If there are complaints from customers naman that their payments are not being credited to their accounts, yung management daw is unaware na fraud is underway by someone who is intercepting income payments. So, today there are more diverse and complex sources information for financial, operational, and other uses within organization. Outsource services, provider supports organization processes through connected inventory management system that may be designed to automatically resupply the client's organization. And financial institutions provide foreign currency exchange rate to facilitate internal trade of future contract prices for commodity derivatives. Other intermediaries may handle credit card transaction information to clear those transactions between merchants, debit and credit financial institution. So, yung as shown in this example, yung some of transaction happen in real time across geographies and in multiple currencies, and any disruption to the flows of information can significantly reduce the company's operations or halt it altogether until the services can be restored. So, in addition to the structured arrangement mentioned above, more internal and external networks have emerged that create unstructured and organic information sharing mechanism. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest did not exist in 1992 when the original COSO framework was released. So ngayon, social media constitute an essential aspect of most organizations' communications infrastructures linking employees, customers, vendors, supporters, and detractors, sharing news, providing feedback, announcing new products, releases, and generating interest among those who may be interested in work for the organization. Syempre, at the same time, anyone unhappy with the decisions and actions of an organization can organize boycotts, file petitions, gather signatures, and other mobilize massive amounts of people to support their views. Then, next naman is yun, as data flows, expand beyond pairs, and incorporate intermediaries, there is a constantly evolving need to ensure the compatibility, quality, speed, and reliability of all of these informations. So these are varied information and communication needs between organizations and third parties, and processes are needed to ensure the stability of this mechanism. So this relationship and data flows means that companies obtain information from and communicate with separate organizations, parties operating outside the company's legal and operational boundaries. So, ito, may quote dito, yung Mark Stapleton states na the objective of business are not to perform internal human resource operations, nor is the objective to perform fixed asset analysis, receivables, collections, or information technology supports information. So, yung objective of business are to perform its core competency, whether that is manufacturing, media production, software development, distribution, or any other activity. So, there are several benefits of third-party service provider, including proficiency that they have in their service area, lower cost per transaction, and high quality, of course. So, there are three broad types of risk that outsourcing creates. So, yung first is yung operational risk, often manifested as slippage of time, cost, and quality, usually due to breakdowns in the transfer of work processes or repetitive processes like to succumb to human error. So, ito usually occurs between service provider does not fully understand the client's requirements or has the capability to achieve them. So, yung strategic risk naman, generally caused by deliberative and opportunistic behavior by service providers or their employees. So, examples nito include intellectual property theft, understaffing, and significant price increases after some years of stable pricing because the client is locked in and will find it difficult to switch suppliers. So, next is yung composite risk. This occurs when the client loses its ability to implement the process for itself because it has outsourced the process for a long time. So, to gain the proper amount of comfort that outsourced risk is an acceptable level, the outsourcing organization can have its own internal or external auditor review the service provider. Additionally, the service provider can have its own internal or external auditor provide reports to its clients since most service providers have multiple customers. So, syempre, in-accommodate nila yung every customers that wants to conduct an audit would disrupt the provider's ability to carry out its normal operations. So, next is yung 3 types of SOC reports. So, dito naman sa SOC 1, These reports are intended to meet the needs of the management of user entities and user entities auditors. So, yung SOC 1, nagpo-focus lang siya sa reports tungkol sa financial report. So, yun. They evaluate the effect of the controls at the service organization on the users, entities, financial statement assertions. So, itong report na to is important components ng user entities, evaluation of their internal controls over financial reporting for purposes of complying with laws and regulations. So, yung SOC 2 naman, these reports are intended to meet the needs of a broad range of users that need to understand internal control at the service organization as it relates to security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. So, sa number 2, mas malawak yung sakop niya compare sa SOC 1. So, these reports, about siya sa security, privacy, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and availability. So, sa pamamagitan ng report na to is mas na-access natin ng mabuti yung internal communication or yung internal control ng isang organization. So, next is yun, sinabi rin dito na for SOC 1 and SOC 2 daw, meron siyang 2 types of report for each. So, yung type 1, it is a report on management's description of a service organization system and the suitability of the design of control. So, yung type 2 naman is halos same lang sila. Pero, yung sa type 2, it is a report on management description of a service organization system and the suitability of the design and operating effectiveness of control. So, yung pinagkaiba lang nila is yung sa type 2 is nadagdagan lang siya ng operating effectiveness of controls. So, yung sa SOC 3, yun, it is a report. Itong report na to is design lang siya para ma-meet yung needs ng user who wants assurance on the controls at sa service organization relating sa security, availability, processing, integrity, or confidentiality, privacy, but do not have the need for or the knowledge necessary to make effective use of SOC Report 2. So, yun, it is expected that information will be sometimes restricted to those who need to know and also to protect the information from getting to others who can cause, yun nga, yung mga makakakos daw ng harm by misissuing this information or profiting from it. It is important, however, to avoid situations where restricting access to information beyond what is necessary would stifle the ability to get work done and treat productivity and speed. So, yung next is yung monitoring. So, monitoring consists of ongoing, separate, or a combination of evaluations used to determine whether each of the 5 components of internal control is present and functioning. So, yun dito sa monitoring activities, this is important also for us para ma-ensure yung effectiveness and efficiency ng informations and communications inside the organizations. Dito rin natin malalaman yung mga controls, ganon, whether yun nga, it is effective ba siya or hindi. So, next, separate or cyclical evaluations will vary in terms of scope and frequency based on the risk assessment performed and the result of previous evaluations. So, yun, sinabi dito, for example, if previous reviews indicate that certain components, systems, or the activities are underperforming, it may be necessary to review this more frequently. If the susceptibility to loss or damage increases due to the business growth, increased liquidity, new system introductions, and so on, then a more in-depth review may be warranted as well. So, the review themselves and the criteria used during these reviews will be based on internal requirements, syempre, and other criteria established by external parties such as regulators, recognized standard-setting bodies, management, and the board of directors. Yun. And then, COSO framework users of the model often focus their monitoring efforts on control activities to the point where it could be described as being a model to identify the test of control. So, the following illustrates how monitoring applies to other components. So, yung control environment, it is concerned with ethics in the organizations. So, dito, parang, concerned with ethics in organizations. Paano nga ba namin ito mamamonitor? Ganun. So, sinabi dito na yung isang approach daw para ma-monitor is to conduct employee surveys. So, these are great tools to collect information and begin to assess the condition of ethics in the workplace. Then, yung management can conduct annual surveys to perform trend analysis and monitor the results. So, next is yung risk assessment. It is constantly changing and such as a risk assessment performed at one point in time may be inaccurate a few months, weeks, or even days later. So, yung risk assessment is important din siya sa isang organization kasi it must identify the risk in their organization for them, of course, to take appropriate actions. Then, the last one is yung information and communication. So, information flows are essential to keep employees and managers aware of a business dynamics. So, napaka-importante ng information and communication sa isang organization para sa awareness ng mga individual sa isang organizations kung ano ba yung mga nangyayari sa isang organizations, ganun. So, if employees are filing complaints with the human resources department, the supervisor is unresponsive, displays favoritism towards selected individuals, and is abusive in the treatment of staff, management would be well served to research the matter right away. So, in general, yung monitoring component serve as a very effective tool para ma-assess ng management in understanding kung how all components of internal control are being applied and can enhance organizational effectiveness when applied as intended. So, yung monitoring activities can be performed as ongoing or as separate evaluations. So, yung last is yung IT and its impact on organizational success. So, yung dito sa IT increasingly plays a pivotal role in organizational success. Organizations should think of or transform it if it isn't yet to be a business service partner instead of just a back-end support unit. It is important to align IT actions and expenses to business needs and revise them as the business grows or changes direction. So, we are now in the age of technology na, and technological advancement is rampant. Kaya, napakalaking tulong ng technology sa business. So, yung IT is nagbibigay ng new and developed level ng success sa isang organizations. And of course, dahil sa IT na ito, yung interconnectedness of people are a lot easier using information technology. So, yun, sobrang laki ng naitulong ng IT sa organizational success. For example, yun nga, yung sa emails, virtual meetings, ganun. So, yung basically yung IT transformed the organizations to another level. So, may katuloy pa to. Ang magre-report nun is si Joshua De La Vega.